is the only station in the IE that broadcasts on 3 frequencies, so advertisers receive 3 ads for 1 low rate. This makes KCAA a must-buy for every local business. If you're interested in a sales position with us, call 909-885-8502 or email ceo@kcaaradio.com.
Kcaa.
Father John Reed.
I'll have you know I have the reflexes of a cat and the speed of a mongoose.
Atheist Pastor Luke King.
Yes, Satan? Oh, I'm sorry, sir. You sounded like someone else.
The Gospel of Luke and John.
I have exorcised the demons. This house is clear.
KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, and online at kcaaradio.com. This is the Gospel of Luke and John. My name is Luke King, your atheist pastor, alongside everyone's favorite Orthodox priest, Father John Reed.
And you can follow us on Facebook. Just search for the Gospel of Luke and John, or Instagram at Luke John Gospel. That's Luke John Gospel. You can submit your questions. Our producer, Tammy, is monitoring these social media sites.
These social media platforms are being monitored, and your questions will be forwarded on to the show hosts the moment that they are posted online.
Nice.
Hey, so happy a week after Christmas, but before New Year's, where really nothing gets done.
That's right. That's
it's
right.
Like nobody wants to go to work, or if you do go to work, you don't want to be there. The pants don't fit as well as they could because you haven't started your New Year's resolutions yet, but you're still eating Christmas leftovers.
There's that part in the hallway where the one door closed, but the other one hasn't opened yet.
It's one of those weeks where there's just like no motivation whatsoever to just do anything, at least for me.
I'm in that same boat. I mean, even my nap takes effort.
Do you, we didn't talk about this before the show, but it's a question that just popped in my head. Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
Yes, I resolved to not making any resolutions this year.
Really? Yeah? Is that what it is?
You know, my New Year's resolution is usually pretty simple. I just want to strive to be a little better human being. That's it. Anything other than that, I know I'm not going to follow through with.
That is the #1 resolution this year.
Yeah, well, there's good
we
reason for
we
that.
didn't even plan that.
Yeah.
Normally it used to be to lose weight. And now this year, the #1 New Year's resolution has been to be a better person, probably because we've had being terrible modeled by everyone in public life for the past year.
You have a good point there. Now I'm wondering, are you going to have a resolution of putting on weight? Because it kills me every time I see you, and I think, God, I got to dump the plump so I could look like Luke and be nice and thin and fit.
No, and here's why. Because I wear a 32 waist.
Is it yours?
And yeah, most days. And that 32 waist, it's hard to button those pants now. The only way I've been able to actually like button the pants is if I have like stretchy pants on, like stretchy jeans. Like I've got some jeans that have like a stretchy waistband. I've been wearing those, and it was really hard to tie my shoe the other day when I was wearing my pants without a stretchy waistband. So the option was A, buy bigger pants, which don't have the money to do, or B, walk a little bit more. So I'm going to give that a shot.
There's a third option. Get slip-ons for shoes.
Well, the thing is, though, so when I met Tammy in April, I weighed 160 pounds.
Right.
And now I weigh 180.
Good heavens.
That's what meeting someone that you fall in love with and can bake will do to you.
It will. And then when you have a wife that puts a lock on a refrigerator, over the last year and a half, I've lost 46 pounds. So I think Carlos just rolled his eyes at me again.
Happy New Year. But people dog on making New Year's resolutions all the time, and I understand why, because I think it's like 80 or 90% of them fail by February or something like that. But it is important to start your year off with a goal.
Yes.
And actually have it's nice to like have a dream or a vision or a goal in mind. Anyway, that's just
And it's a good excuse to say, I just want to do something a little bit better because I realize that there's room for improvement.
Yeah, we're just going to eat a salad along with all the other terrible stuff that we eat.
Oh, why did you go there? Good Lord.
We just want to add a salad to it.
Can I offer you a caramel before we get to the first of the year?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, no, I didn't say I'm going to stop eating sweets or anything. I said we're going to add salad to the thing. Hey, so we're going to talk what we want to talk about tonight is an issue that comes up all the time in kind of the religious world, but it comes up in a very subversive way, and it's something that when it's talked about, it's powerful, but most of the time it's not talked about, and that's why it's not powerful. That was a really cryptic and terrible way to set something up.
It is, but it's one of the most important things that we've ever talked about on this show.
Did you just say that was a terrible way I set that up?
No, I said it's one of the most important things we've talked about on this show.
It is. So we want to talk tonight about religion and mental health.
Yes.
And how, in many cases, a lot of really hardcore, conservative or evangelical, but not even though. In many cases,
it goes across the board.
It really does. In many cases, the American church, especially, and I think a lot of Americans too, we can take it to a broader context, do not see mental health as this viable as a problem.
And it is a huge problem in America. It's one of the worst kept secrets, and we have so many people who are tormented, and I don't use that word lightly. They are tormented with their mental state, and if you get help, you're looked down on for getting help in some cases. However, that is changing a little bit. There are a lot of people trying to do mental health awareness, but in the church world, it's been slow to catch on, and there's many things in the church world that can't be dealt with simply with prayer, and qualifications that some clergy don't have that are necessary. We're talking before the show, some of the credentials I have that make me an authoritative source to talk about this is, one, I have a bachelor's degree in human behavior. My master's and my PhD are both in religious studies and counseling. I'm a certified alcoholism specialist. I'm a grief specialist. I am certified in trauma debriefing. So I've done the schooling for when people come in and need help. A lot of clergy don't, and they give advice that they're not qualified to give. And one of the worst things you could say to somebody who's suffering from great depression is you just need to have more faith. And in fact, why don't we talk about one of those religious things and play?
Yeah, so we have a clip we want to play from a well-educated religious icon in today's day and age. And this was this is Tom Cruise talking to Matt Lauer in 2005 on the Today Show.
One who benefited from one of those drugs.
All it does is mask the problem, Matt. And if you understand the history of it, it masks the problem. That's what it does. That's all it does. You're not getting to the reason why. There is no such thing as a chemical imbalance.
So postpartum depression to you is
Matt,
kind of a little psychological gobbledygook?
No, I did not say that.
I'm just asking, what would you call it?
Matt, that is the post. Now you're talking about two different things.
But that's what she went on the antidepressant for.
But what happens, the antidepressant, all it does is mask the problem. There's ways of vitamins and through exercise and various things. I'm not saying that isn't real. That's not what I'm saying. That's an alteration of what I'm saying. I'm saying that drugs aren't the answer, that these drugs are very dangerous. They're mind-altering, antipsychotic drugs.
So, vitamins and exercise. Problem solved.
Oh, it's that kind of stuff that really drives me out of my skin, because it's beyond ignorant. It's stupid.
Well, and absolutely. And the thing is that's not sometimes you can hear something, if you're not familiar with Tom Cruise's kind of extracurricular activities, he is very huge in the Church of Scientology. He's probably their number one representative kind of outside, the church walls. He brings people in. People see him as kind of this. He was awarded some kind of cool Medal of Valor several years ago through the Church of Scientology. And he speaks with this authority.
But he's not educated in any psychological practice. First of all, there is such thing as chemical imbalance. There's a problem where the neurons in the synapse are not firing the way they're supposed to. The receptors are not receiving the serotonin or the dopamine, which are probably words he's never heard of. And let me tell you something about antidepressants. You cannot get high off an antidepressant. What it does is it causes the brain to create the serotonin and the dopamine that are necessary to combat depression. And there's a difference between sadness and clinical depression. All of us go through times where we're sad. But clinical depression, you have no power over that to just change your mind and say, I'm just not going to be depressed anymore. And the rule of thumb when prescribing, now I want to be real clear, I'm a PhD and my doctorate's in religious studies and counseling, so I'm not a clinical psychologist, but I did go through the clinical pastoral counseling program, which there's a few schools that have that for people who do extensive counseling, which I do. So when I have to have someone who needs medication, I send them to a physician, a licensed PA or a licensed MD or DO. Those are the ones who should prescribe these. I'm so angry at Tom Cruise I can't even speak right now. I'm sorry. Well, when you're getting the serotonin, it helps, but you can't get high off of it. And if you've only been depressed once, they may give you a short dose. Twice, they may take a little longer, but if you've been on antidepressants 3 times in your lifetime, that means you're a lifer for antidepressants because your brain is not creating those chemicals that you need. That's not your fault.
And see, the thing is, and the problem that we're addressing here is that there are people, like the person we just referenced, I mean, his opinion is not unique. His idea of chemical imbalances not existing, that is not unique. So the things that you're saying right now about talking about these chemical imbalances, that doesn't even register to these people because they don't even believe it exists. Right. So what they do is they're in certain settings where, you know, Tom Cruise would probably say, just think happy thoughts. Just say your daily affirmations. And to someone that's never struggled with depression like this, like I cannot connect with a clinically depressed person in a way in terms of like from experience,
right?
Because I don't know how that feels. So for me, I would just refer someone. I mean, if someone were coming to me and was clinically depressed, there's no way that I would be able to adequately assist that person because I can't connect with that.
Well, I have clergy in the area where I am in Claremont that call me up. I had a call yesterday, in fact, from a local priest who I have a lot of respect for. And one of the reasons I respect him, he knows his limitations. He was dealing with somebody who's having a psychotic episode. And so we got him over to a mental health facility that deals with that for a PET team. That's a psychiatric evaluation team. Some call it a psychiatric assessment team. So it could either be a PET team or a PAT team. And what they do is they evaluate, are you a danger to yourself or others? If you are, in the penal code, it's 5150. They do a 72-hour observation on you to medicate you. Now, that's not going to fix it, but it can get you through the suicidal episode or homicidal episode because there's a thin line between suicidal and homicidal. And sometimes when you see these couples, and we're getting a lot of them in the news right now where it's a murder-suicide, they flip that quick. And if you don't know what you're doing, you need to get them to somebody who does. I've had people tell people, clergy say to people, all you need is a little more faith. You need to have a little more prayer, and it'll be just fine. You're depressed because you don't have enough faith in God. Then, when the person, because it's not something in their control, and they feel like it's their fault, they commit suicide, then they turn around and say, well, they're in hell.
Well, and, you know, and after the break, I want to get into a little bit about suicide and you know, how people talk about going to hell and how the church talks about a lot in terms of you know, how we try to pray it out and say there's faith. And there's also traditions where I think the broader context of this and the biggest issue with this in a lot of ways is that people don't see mental illness as a real illness.
And that's a shame.
They, you know, if I walked in and had a lobbed off leg,
right,
it's pretty clear where that injury is.
Yeah.
If people suffer from burns, it's a pretty clear injury. If someone's, we've talked on the show about domestic violence. We've talked about child marriages. All these things that people can get, you know, you can see they're outrageous in terms of causing outrage.
Right.
But even when you look at, you know, TBIs in the military, traumatic brain injuries, those are like a second-class injury because you can't see it.
And yet, even with some of the ones you can see, you've had people that you've known who thought if they had enough faith, they'd grow a new limb.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. So being part of the Pentecostal movement and the Pentecostal tradition is that, you know, it's funny because there are times when they're very much about going to doctors. So the tradition I was in would never tell you, don't go to the doctor.
Good.
But they would also tell you, don't put more faith in the doctor than you do in God.
And see, that's where I think you and I probably would agree on this, that I think the physician and the metaphysician should be working hand in hand.
Oh, for sure.
It's not either or. Either you go to the doctor or you pray. I think you go to the doctor and pray. At the same time, don't mistake the prayer for all the skill that the doctor has. The doctor went to school for a long time, thank goodness, and God gave us these doctors, so we make use of them and we bring them together. Dr. Bernie Siegel prays with his patients, and he practices the skill that he went to school for a long time to have.
Well, listen, we're coming up on a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about, let's talk a little bit more when we come back about this idea of not having enough faith and kind of demon possession and all that kind of stuff. And then suicide and hell and kind of that feel like the trauma that can come in addition to the trauma of actually experiencing someone, having a loved one commit suicide, but then the additional trauma that's often inflicted on people by their church saying, oh, by the way, now that loved one's in hell.
Yes.
My name's Luke King. When I left the church, I had no idea where to turn. I lost my entire worldview. I knew deep down that it was possible to be a secular person and still add value to the lives of others. I just had no idea how to live that way. I read books, I searched for tips and ideas. I wanted to ask for advice, but I didn't even know who to ask. I became frustrated because it seemed like all the resources available were out to prove religion wrong, and that just wasn't my concern. My concern was, how do I live my best life today? Since I couldn't find the guidance I was searching for, I started the Your Atheist Pastor Show to document my journey. I love people. I still want to do good in this world. The only difference is that now I do it without God. I'd love for you to come on this journey with me. Just hop on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, anywhere podcasts can be found, and type in Your Atheist Pastor. That's Your Atheist Pastor. Welcome to church. The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org. www.4pfp as in personalfuneralplanning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
Hello there! Are you tired of handcrafted, award-winning beer in a cozy, family-friendly atmosphere? Of course you're not! You're not a dummy! Sanctum Brewing Company is all these things at once. Nestled in beautiful Pomona, California, Sanctum is independently owned and operated, making delectable poetry by the pint for your enjoyment, bringing you a family-friendly, dog-friendly atmosphere. Enjoy the wonderful views at Sanctum Brewing Company, including warehouses, mountains, and train tracks. Also, we have a pallet wood wall. Yes, we were doing it before it was cool. We're not that hard to find on Google Maps, or Apple Maps, or MapQuest. Yes, it's still a thing. Sanctum Brewing Company, home to the world's largest selection of 2x4 furniture.
Where the bad folks go when they die, but don't go to heaven where the angels fly. Go to a lake of fire and fry, see him again till the 4th of July.
The Gospel of Luke and John on KCAA 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, and online at kcaaradio.com.
Yes.
Do you like that? That sounded good, didn't it?
I like that. That's good. I haven't heard something that good since the Muppets.
Yes, it's the voice of, I don't know where I was going to go with that. I was going to come up with something cheeky and fun, but I didn't, but I failed.
Well, that's okay. I appreciate the effort. But
hey, you can also call us, by the way. We are talking about some pretty heavy issues, and if this brings up anything, or you have any questions, you have anything going on in your life that you might want two pastors to comment on, give us a call at 909-792-5222, 909-792-KCAA. Carlos will answer, and then he will patch you through to us, and it'll be a great time. We'd love to talk to you.
Absolutely, and it's worth talking about. So if you want to call and ask questions, by all means, we're here for you.
Please interrupt us if you feel like there's something that you're dying to talk about, or there's something that really has been kind of weighing heavy on your heart, and you're just like, I have something that I need to get off, my chest. Well, be careful with that. We are on the radio and it's live. But if you have something that you want to talk about, please call us. I'll be more than happy to talk to you. So we talked before the break about talking about suicide and hell, and this idea that God's going to just jump in and heal everything, and then He has to heal it now. And in 2013, there was a fairly high-profile suicide.
Yes.
A gentleman named Matthew Warren, who's the son of the well-known pastor Rick Warren in Saddleback Church in Orange County. And Rick, Rick moderated in 2008. He did the John McCain, and he had John McCain and Barack Obama at the church. I think it was 2008. Right?
Yes,
Isn't that one?
In fact, he was part of swearing in of Barack Obama when he became president.
Yeah, so he had people come to his church, and he had the presidential. I mean, he's a fairly well-known pastor, and his son committed suicide in 2013, and since that time, his wife Kay, Rick's wife Kay, has actually become a very outspoken advocate for mental health and for suicide awareness and prevention, to educate people and to talk about the warning signs of what could lead to suicide.
And also, I think it's important to point out, these are not bad people trying to get good. They're wounded people who are trying to find a healing. I've heard people call them cowards because of what they did. Look, when you're in that much pain, it's difficult to see any way out. In fact, the best way I've ever heard it described was in the movie Ordinary People, when Timothy Hutton was talking about his experience. He had attempted suicide in the movie, and when he talked about what it was like and being in the hole, and you find out that you are the hole, and it just gets deeper and there's no light. I've never seen a movie so greatly describe what it is to walk through that. It was, if you can watch it and you don't have tears, you're pretty callous.
And I don't understand why people say things like, "Oh, that's the coward's way out," or "How could they do that?" That's such a, they're being so rude and condescending, when it's like the most. It's the what am I trying to say? It is
because it keeps us from feeling the pain.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's if you can sit there and you look at someone and you're like, "Oh, what a coward! How dare they do that?" You never look at yourself to realize that anybody in that place could get to that point.
And we're so afraid in our culture to have real feelings. Look, I'm not calling the people who say that bad. I get the fact that we try to put a buffer because we're so afraid to feel those feelings. I've done too many services for people who committed suicide. A few years back, I did the services for a kid who was 15 years old, that if you would have held up a picture of me at 15 next to this kid, you wouldn't have been able to tell the difference. We looked exactly alike. We grew up in the same crazy home, only he was successful with suicide. And it threw me in such a deep depression that for a couple weeks, I cried myself to sleep every night, and every morning it took everything in me to get out of bed to help another family, because I felt this kid's pain so greatly. But let's talk a little bit about Rick Warren's wife.
Well, yeah, and so when she was being interviewed in 2014 by Christianity Today, she pointed out that one of the biggest issues that she saw in the evangelical community was that they weren't being positive. They were being positive at the expense of talking about their real crisis and real doubt. And she said in this interview, it was just all happy, happy, joy, joy. We need to tell people that we are just like everybody else. We're sinners, we're broken. There are some days I'm just not sure God exists. And it's this idea of trying to, everybody feels bad at some point. Everybody feels down at some point.
Do you know what it means to be a sinner? In the Orthodox way of looking at it, it's someone who recognizes they need help beyond just themselves. And at that point, we're all sinners because we all need help. That's not a bad thing. And the term comes from archery. It means you missed the mark. You pull back your bow, you release the arrow, and if you don't hit the bullseye, someone yells, sin.
But I think there's a greater problem in it might not be in the tradition that you're in, and it's not in every Christian tradition that's out there. It was definitely in the Christian tradition that I was a part of. Is that people, they say we're all sinners, and that's an identity thing. It's a thing of, it's no wonder that some people are depressed and sad, because they are told every day and they're told every Sunday that they're sinners and they need a savior, and they're you're this, you're that, you're bad, and you need Jesus to come in and fix you. And then when you pray and Jesus comes in, Jesus doesn't fix you, because there's more to it than that.
There is.
Now I'm all fired up.
Well, and there's good reason to be. Look, this is something you and I are both passionate about, because we have people we love who have been hurt by this. And again, it's not a matter of one or the other. The physician and the metaphysician should be working together hand in hand, and for heaven's sake, to show compassion, because the person isn't feeling this way just because they got up and were lazy emotionally. They have no control over it. And then when they hear over and over again, well, you shouldn't feel that way, well, then now they really feel like they're left out. Instead of someone saying, I hear how you feel. How can I help? How can I help get you into somebody who knows how to help?
Well, and it's when they're finally brave enough to come out and ask for help.
Yes.
When they're finally brave enough to go to their pastor and say, I struggle with doubting my faith. I struggle with wanting to take my own life. I struggle with finding I don't feel worthy. I don't have any self-esteem. I'm just a sinner. The pastor just prays for them a lot of time. Let's ask, give this to Jesus. Meditate on the scriptures more. When I was in the tradition that I was a part of, we talked about people believing that their legs are going to grow. Like, that's not a joke.
I know.
I mean, people believe, and I heard testimonies and stories of people whose legs were 2 inches shorter than, their right leg was 2 inches shorter than their left. They got together, they prayed, and boop, legs grew.
Wow.
Yeah, never saw it, heard about it. That's the funny thing about these testimonies, by the way. In the age where everything is videotaped, there's no video record of any of this happening.
But there's another
side note.
There's another area, and I really want our listeners to hear this. One of the areas that have created more suicides is telling people they're bad because they're gay. First of all, sexual orientation is not a choice. God doesn't make junk. I want to be real clear about that. And these crazy programs that they try to put people through to make them straight, it's a con job. And I've seen more people commit suicide because they couldn't make themselves straight. They felt they were an abomination to God, an abomination to their family and to society, and so they commit suicide because they think the world's better off without them. That needs to stop, and it needs to stop now.
And that is just one area where there's just so much shame and guilt heaped on people for stepping outside the rules.
Outside and man-made rules. Let's be clear about
absolutely. And that's the problem, I think, is one of the challenges, with this institution that is still so prevalent in American culture, is that it is these restrictions upon human behavior that oftentimes are not biblical restrictions, or they're biblical restrictions like taken out of context, or they're cherry picked.
But it's not just there. It took into the DSM-5 for homosexuality to be taken out of the diagnostic psychiatric manual that we all use for diagnosing. But it shows you that medical science has now come so far as to say this is not a mental disorder. This is how people are born. Now that's science, kids.
The thing with medical science, though, is that medical science is willing to change its opinion in the face of new information. And a lot of these people that we're discussing are not there. Some people still believe the Earth is flat.
Yeah, they do. Well, they still think They think we didn't land on the moon, that it's staged.
I just don't get it. I just but it's this thing of, I know better and I'm open to, listen, I'm more than willing to change my opinion based on new information. Somebody told me that a long time ago.
I think you read that in somebody's book.
I know the guy who mentioned that. I reserve the right to change. One of the first times John and I ever got together and talked was it was a while ago.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, I don't know, whatever. And you said, I reserve the right. I tell my people that I reserve the right to change my mind based on new information.
Yes.
And there's such a willingness, in progressive churches for the most part, there's a willingness to do that.
Yes.
In the atheist community, in most cases, there's willingness to do that. They can be pretty fundamentalist and hardline too, though. I mean, that's a different topic for a different time. There's just as many fundamentalist atheists out there as there are Christians. There really are.
You mean there are people too?
They are. They are. Not only are they people, but it's funny. Side note: it's funny to see how many people hate and talk negatively about Christian fundamentalism, and they talk about how open-minded they are until you question them about something that they believe in, and then they're not open-minded anymore. Like, they're open-minded as long as you agree with them,
right?
Which is
because you're part of their community, and you're not an other. But when you disagree, now you're an other, and really you're bad for that.
Oh, absolutely. And gosh, why did we even start talking about this? I don't even remember where we were going with this now.
We were going.
Where are we talking? New information. New information. That's right. DSM-5. There we go. Now I remember. So we're talking about the DSM-5 and new information. I started going down a rabbit hole that I didn't know where it was going.
Good Lord. All right, Alice, come on back.
But that's the thing. Like a lot of these churches, the only time they change their mind is when it happens to them.
Right. Well, I remember when AIDS first became an epidemic. And everyone was trying to say that it was a gay disease, which it is not. Let me be real clear about that. Medical science will tell you it is not. And there was a local pastor in Claremont area. I was working with Foothill AIDS Project at the time, and he was very down on people with AIDS until his son contracted AIDS. And it changed his entire life. It changed his entire ministry. At one time, I was one of the only clergy in the Inland Empire openly doing funerals for people who died of AIDS. It was that kind of scandal. Aren't we supposed to be the people with compassion? Aren't we supposed to be the people who are to be forgiving, who are to give hope? That's why I used to give 3 hours a week to for the AIDS Project, not because I was good, but because I felt called there to give compassion. Sometimes the most compassionate thing I could do is to rub the feet of somebody who had AIDS, because nobody would touch them. And just to give them human contact. They didn't need preaching at. They needed love. It reminds me, just real quick, I got you right in the middle of the
No, you did. Go ahead.
St. Francis of Assisi used to tell his friars, go out and preach the gospel, and when necessary, use words.
Well, it goes back to that fundamental, where anybody, regardless as to what you suffer, whatever pathology you suffer from, because we all have a certain pathology that we suffer from. Who knows?
Yes.
I suffer from looking so good that I just don't know what to do with myself.
Man, you wear it.
I look in the mirror and I just get sucked in.
Hard to be humble.
Wasn't that Narcissus? Isn't there a guy that
doesn't mean you're not a nice guy?
But every human being wants love, belonging, and connection. Like, that's what everybody's looking for.
Yes.
And the fact that when you tell someone that if you are depressed, you need to fix that before you can get love, belonging, or connection. I mean, that's the implied message in so many of these situations where people come forward and, if you tell someone that they have a demon that needs to be cast out of them, you are telling them something is wrong with them.
Well, I used to work with a counseling center up in Victorville, and I was called to do a consult on somebody who was schizophrenic with paranoid features that had audible and visual hallucinations. And the reason they called on me was because of my credential as a clinical pastor, because they thought the person had possession. And I'm giving them the diagnosis from the DSM series, saying, no, this is what it is. This is your axis 1, your axis 2. And they said, you mean it's not demonic possession? I said, no. Get into the 21st century, for heaven's sakes. This is a person who, if you use a little Haldol and some Thorazine, would do pretty well. You know, get a physician involved with your patient. Thank you.
So when we come back, let's talk a little bit about what people can do right now, and maybe some ways that, obviously reaching out for help is one thing, but what are some other tips and tricks and things that people can do to maybe in this new year get in a little bit better position and a little bit better place with their mental health?
Amen.
Hello there! Are you tired of handcrafted, award-winning beer in a cozy, family-friendly atmosphere? Of course you're not! You're not a dummy! Sanctum Brewing Company is all these things at once. Nestled in beautiful Pomona, California, Sanctum is independently owned and operated, making delectable poetry by the pint for your enjoyment, bringing you a family-friendly, dog-friendly atmosphere. Enjoy the wonderful views at Sanctum Brewing Company, including warehouses, mountains, and train tracks. Also, we have a pallet wood wall. Yes, we were doing it before it was cool. We're not that hard to find on Google Maps, or Apple Maps, or MapQuest. Yes, it's still a thing. Sanctum Brewing Company. There will be snacks.
My name's Luke King. When I left the church, I had no idea where to turn. I had lost my entire worldview. I knew deep down that it was possible to be a secular person and still add value to the lives of others. I just had no idea how to live that way. I read books, I searched for tips and ideas. I wanted to ask for advice, but I didn't even know who to ask. I became frustrated because it seemed like all the resources available were out to prove religion wrong, and that just wasn't my concern. My concern was, how do I live my best life today? Since I couldn't find the guidance I was searching for, I started the Your Atheist Pastor Show to document my journey. I love people. I still want to do good in this world. The only difference is that now I do it without God. I'd love for you to come on this journey with me. Just hop on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, anywhere podcasts can be found, and type in Your Atheist Pastor. That's Your Atheist Pastor. Welcome to church. The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org. www.4pfp as in personalfuneralplanning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org. Are you a business owner or entrepreneur? Maybe you manage a nonprofit. What are your dreams? What are your goals? Are you searching for that business breakthrough? Well, we have the answer. Radio. That's right. Radio. 93% of Americans listen to radio each week, and Forbes magazine calls radio the captive audience that most businesses overlook. The second most popular radio platform is talk radio, which is what you're listening to right now. So what are you waiting for? Let's develop a plan to take your business to the next level and beyond. Go to lucascking.com and fill out the form. It's really simple. It'll pop right up when you get there. And I'll get back to you within 24 hours to set up a time for us to talk. That's lucascking.com. Lucas C, as in Carl, King.com.
KCAA 1050 AM, 102.3 FM and 106.5 FM, and online at kcaaradio.com. This is the Gospel of Luke and John. My name is Luke King alongside Father John Reed.
Hey, good evening again and welcome back. And we want to talk a little bit about if you want to do something better for this year and you want some help, we want to throw out a couple resources. One, if you are feeling that you are depressed or in danger of taking your life, Here's the National Suicide Hotline phone number: 1-800-273-8255. Again, that's 1-800-273-8255. Please call that number. And if you or you know someone who has a drug or alcohol problem, the National Council for Alcohol and Drug Dependency is 909-629-4084. Again, that's 909-629-4084. And they can give you a whole lot of referral information to different programs, some that are paid for by the community, some that take private insurance. But for heaven's sake, get help.
And if you don't feel, if you're listening, you're like, okay, this is great, and I love what you guys are saying, but I don't need to do that, but I still want to be better off this next year. What can I do? We have a few tips and ideas on things you can do to improve your mental health moving forward and just kind of get in a better mental state, because we are in an environment now where we are inundated by all kinds of things that are detrimental to our mental health.
Yes.
The thousands of emails you get all day long are detrimental. Especially, I can't remember where I was reading this. There was this basically when you see in a subject line or see from someone that this email could potentially be threatening. So you get an email from your boss or something like that.
Yes.
Your breath quickens, your eyes widen. You have a fear response. Mm-hmm. It's the same response that you would have if a bear walked into the room and was going to eat your face off.
Fight or flight.
And rather than, but what most people do is, but we don't flight anymore. We don't fight anymore. We don't get rid of those stress hormones. So those hormones stay in your body, and then you have panic attacks. And then so what can we do to not have that anymore? What can we do to relax a little bit? I have an idea. The first thing, you can read more.
Yes.
I know a great book that you can read.
Oh, do you?
I do. It's called Close Your Eyes So You Can See Me. It's a great book.
You made it sound like it's German, very guttural.
Close your eyes. Close your eyes so you can see me.
I'm sure you have tissue.
But it's actually written by this man named Father John Reed.
Yes, and it's available on Amazon at Barnes & Nobles. But go to Amazon, just because when it sells there, there's a portion of that we use
better royalties.
Well, that too, and we use it to help pay for the show, our airtime, and we need the help.
That's Amazon.com. Close Your Eyes So You Can See Me by Father John Reed.
That's right.
It's a great book, though, and the thing is, too, is especially it's valuable for you as you get to know other people in this world, and as you start, especially if you're hardcore religious, as you get to know more people in this world, you will start to realize that there are very good people in this world who believe completely different things than you do.
Yes. And
you've been taught that unless people believe exactly what you believe, life is going to be miserable and you're going to hate it. And that's not true. And for some people, the end result of coming into that kind of faith conundrum is to go the direction I did, which is to not have faith anymore. For others, it's to move to a more progressive viewpoint of faith.
Yes.
And your book does that. Your book really helps anyone who is looking for a faith, who's looking to keep their faith, but to modify it in such a way that is congruent with their experience. Your book does that.
Well, thank you.
And I think that's an important resource for people to have, to be able to do something like that.
And more often than not, we have more in common than we do apart. But another thing that we can do to help with the stress is yoga. And you have a thing coming up on January 7th.
That was beautiful. That was the most beautiful turn I've seen. That was such a great transition. Yeah, so
I even used my blinker.
Well, yoga actually is a great way to reduce stress. And if you just get online and look up the benefits of yoga, well, actually, don't get online and do that because there's so much woo out there as well.
Yes.
So in the yoga world, there's just as much bull dookie as you see. In what Tom Cruise said. There are people who believe the exact same thing that Tom Cruise said who are in the yoga world. So I want to be careful when I talk about getting into the yoga world. You have to be, just like anything else, you got to be careful with who you talk to and who you go to yoga with. But there are so many health, like proven health benefits to practicing yoga. Better sleep, less stress, increased sex drive. In men, it can increase testosterone production. In women, it can increase their, desire
Niagara.
for other. Yeah. No need for the blue pill. But just aside from that, there's just so we don't move that much anymore.
True.
And this gets people moving. And I hear it all the time. Well, I can't do yoga because I'm not flexible. And that's like saying I don't go to the gym because I'm not strong. Like, you go to the gym to get strong. So you need to go practice yoga to become flexible.
Also, it's important because it's a group activity.
Yes.
We are so isolated, and we need to get out of that isolation. We need to socialize. Facebook is not socialization. Facebook is throwing insults at one another and commenting on each other's posts and not knowing how to really be a community.
So on January 7th at 11:30 a.m., you can do several different things at one time. Number one, you can support someone who supports this show because you're going to Sanctum Brewing Company, which is where we're having this yoga event. Number two, you get to meet one of the hosts of the show. That's
the better looking of the two hosts.
Well, I don't know about that. I think Gabby would disagree with that. Number three, you get to not only support the advertiser of the show, you get to support one of the people who's on the show.
Right.
And by supporting the people who are on the show, you support the show. Because if the people who are on the show aren't supported, we can't afford to support the show. So January 7th at 11:30, it's an all-levels class. We're going to do 11:30 to 12:30. And then it's $15, cash preferable. And that covers yoga and beer. So that covers both. So you're getting, in the average yoga class for a drop-in rate at a yoga studio is anywhere from $15 to $20. So you're getting a deal by coming out to Sanctum and by coming to this event.
And I've talked to people who've worked with Luke as a yoga instructor, and I could tell you he comes very highly recommended.
You will have an amazing time, and if you hate it, I'll give you your money back.
Another thing is to unplug, not on Thursday nights.
Right.
But other times, unplug, go on a retreat. In fact, I'm leading a retreat that it's already closed, so I'm not advertising the retreat. It's booked with a waiting list. Next month at Sarah Retreat in Malibu, California. But go up to the mountains. We're so close to the mountains where we're located here in the Inland Empire. Go take a day. Turn off your cell phone for a while. Just unplug and breathe. Just breathe.
Well, that goes back, there's, think about what you used to do as a kid that was fun, that you were able to just let go. I mean, because it made me think of that when you said go to the mountains. Like as a kid, I used to always go out into the woods. I read a lot. I went out to the woods, went for walks, like all these things I don't do because I'm too busy. I have too much to do.
I remember when I was 18, I rode a motorcycle. I would put a sleeping bag on the back. I'd ride up to Mount Baldy. I would park my motorcycle behind a big boulder where nobody could see it from the road, and I would hike in, and I would spend 2 or 3 days up in Mount Baldy by myself, and it would rejuvenate me. I'd come back down, and I was a whole new person. And every once in a while, I just have to unplug and do that again.
Yeah, and just avoiding your emails will be fine if you're not able to answer them right away.
Right.
Your cell phone will be fine if you're not able to answer them right away. Your text messages will be fine if you're not able to answer them right away. And we get sucked into, turn off the notifications on your phone. Turn off the notifications on your text message. Do things like that will help you move away from everybody constantly coming at you.
And when I'm more relaxed, when I breathe, I'm a better husband to Gabby. I'm a better friend to those around me. And the people who do counseling with me, I'm a better counselor for them because I'm in a good frame of mind, because I can give them 100% of my attention because I'm not overtired. There's in the 12-step recovery program, they have a thing called HALT. Don't get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And as a society right now, we're just so overly stimulated. Unplug for a little bit. You're worth it.
Well, that's another great thing you can do, too, is to find these groups and these recovery groups and things like that for things that you're dealing with.
Yes. And there's groups for almost everything now, and that's a beauty. You know, it started out with one 12-step recovery program in 1935, and now they say there's over 100 12-step recovery programs.
Wow.
For almost anything you can think of, including Debtors Anonymous. If you go out and you're always spending money you don't have, and I'm not laughing at it. There's people who really do that. Gamblers Anonymous. So find out where you go. There's some great church groups. There's some great non-religious groups that get together. There's Sierra Club. You can get involved with social justice, so that you're fighting for something that's bigger than yourself.
Oh yeah, getting into something that's outside of yourself and something that really kind of ignites passion in your life. I think that's what's so important moving into this next year, is like find something that really ignites a fire in your belly.
Makes you excited about being alive.
Yeah, because so many people aren't. I mean, so many people get up in the morning and they get up on Monday morning. They hate going into work. They hate getting in their car. They hate driving to work. They hate being at work. They hate driving home from work. Once they get home, they're stressed because they have to go to work the next day. And they just keep going down this road of stress and frustration. And it doesn't have to be that way.
You know, we were talking about this the other day when we were putting together today's show, about that's one of the reasons universal health care is so important, because so many people work jobs that they hate because they have benefits.
Right. And I was talking about that. This is without getting too far into this, and getting too far down in this rabbit hole. I get so frustrated when I hear people talk about, it tends to be people who are anti-universal health care who also say small businesses are the backbone of this economy. Small businesses are the backbone of the country, which we all know they are. And the problem is that most people don't feel like they can start their small businesses because they can't leave their job because their job has benefits.
Yes, and if we had universal health care, then the employer doesn't have to worry about, do I give a decent job or do I give benefits? Do I cut hours so I don't have to? It helps everybody. And
will taxes go up? Yes.
But
yes,
for
they
a
will.
good cause.
They will. But also,
so will your wage, though.
Right. And the next question then is like, if you don't have to worry about health insurance, maybe you go to the doctor when you start to feel bad instead of waiting until you're dying because you can't afford to go to the doctor otherwise.
Now, I have to poke a hole in one of the biggest lies that the insurance companies put out, and that's about Canada. You do not have to wait 6 weeks to see a doctor. I know people from Canada, I really do, this isn't a line, who have shared with me when they go to an emergency room, they never wait more than 10 minutes. The only time you wait for something is if it's elective surgery, like you're going to get a nose job or something. Then you may wait 6 weeks to 6 months. But to see your doctor, you can get in any time, and they say there's never more than a 10-minute wait time in the emergency room. Now, these are Canadians telling me this, not people telling me about Canadians.
Right, not certain Americans telling you about Canadians. It's actually people who experience it.
Now, before we end the show tonight, you and I have been united on this. We owe a really big thanks to one of the most talented board operators in the radio world, Carlos.
Every single week I write at the bottom of my paper, thank Carlos. And I think once I've actually done it.
And to our listeners, I want you to know what a genius this guy really is. And I mean that with every fiber of my being. He really makes this show work. We have talented producers. We have Tammy. We have Gabby, who keeps me in line. She gives me the look when I start getting too crazy. I have my co-host, Luke, and then I get to come along for the ride. But these people, I've never had such joy to work with such talent, and I just want to make sure that we express it all the way around. And Carlos, we love you, man. You're good people.
So we hope you have a very happy and healthy and safe New Year. New Year's Eve is on Sunday.
And don't forget, come hear us next year.
Yeah, come back. We're going to be back in January. So come back and listen to us, and drive safe out there. Download Uber or Lyft before you go out to your parties or anything like that. Don't drink and drive. Don't do anything stupid,
And be healthy.
Yeah.
And be loved.
And if you're going to do something stupid, at least, don't hurt yourself.
and post it on our Facebook page.
Tell us what you did. Have a good one.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
The Big Orange drops at midnight in Redlands. Don't miss out on the fun December 31st. Brought to you by the Redlands Chamber of Commerce, the New Year's Eve drop will feature dancing in the streets, specialty pricing at participating restaurants, as well as fireworks at the squeeze of midnight. 6 p.m. on State and Orange Streets in Redlands. For more info, call 909-793-2546. Come bring in 2018 in style. Happy Juice here.
If you're looking for a full or part-time sales position and you have radio, TV, or print media experience, Kcaa has a great opportunity waiting for you that pays the highest commissions in the market. Kcaa is the only station in the IE that broadcasts on 3 frequencies, so advertisers receive 3 ads for 1 low rate. This makes Kcaa a must-buy for every local business. If you're interested in a sales position with us, call 909-885-8502 or email ceo@kcaaradio.com. KCAA Loma Linda. Listen on 1050 AM, 102.3